You're listening to the Just Go Bike podcast. We're all about the culture of bicycling just for the fun of it. Your host, Kathy Murphy from the Morphology podcast and Andrea Parrott from Parrott Talk are joined by a wide variety of guests each week that delve into the social side of cycling. With tales from RAGBRAI Nation, come for the bikes, stay for the fun, and leave with a smile. And now, here are your hosts, Murph.
Hey, that's me.
And AP.
And that's me. Well, hey, Murph.
Hey there, AP. Beautiful day today, isn't it?
Well, it sure is a nice one out here. We are podcasting from the front stoop of Captain Roy's.
Yeah, I would say we're broadcasting live, but I guess every time we record, at that moment, we're live.
That's right. I am alive.
Will you tell the listeners why we're at Captain Roy's?
Well, I love coming to Captain Roy's for any reason, but we are here tonight for bingo. We are calling bingo, and the beneficiary of our bingo games will be the Iowa Bicycle Coalition.
Yes. So Captain Roy's is here in Des Moines. It's, I guess I'm not a Des Moines resident like you are, but in my opinion of this place it is a very bicycle-focused bar. Dare I say restaurant? I mean, they have food, right?
That's right. They do have a food truck. They are situated along, I can't remember if it's the Des Moines or the Raccoon River, but they're along a bike trail that runs through downtown Des Moines, heads past Captain Roy's to the Botanical Garden. It's really awesome. It's beautifully connected all the way around Des Moines.
Yeah.
So it's just a great place to stop on your bike. Captain Roy's has given us nothing for saying this, but it's just a really cool place, and it's fun. They do bingo every Wednesday, and the proceeds always go to a charity, and we are lucky enough to be asked to do this tonight.
So the Just Go Bike podcast is hitting the stage in a matter of minutes, but we wanted to come on and do a little recording before our episode about Tour of the Battenkill. But before we go to that, you mentioned the beneficiary for tonight. So should we tell everybody a little bit about the Iowa Bicycle Coalition?
Yeah, the Iowa Bicycle Coalition is the number one bicycle advocacy organization in Iowa. If a law gets passed affecting cyclists, it was because of the IBC almost every time. If your kid gets trained about bike safety in school, the program was likely sponsored by the Iowa Bicycle Coalition. And they run a number of rides as well.
Yes, and Luke Hoffman is the current executive director of the Iowa Bike Coalition. He's been on the podcast several times, so maybe I'll put a link in the show notes to his most recent episode. And that is a great segue into some of the rides that they sponsor, which of course are fundraisers for their organization.
Yeah.
But we've got Pigtails Ride, which is women's specific. Another ride that is important to bicycling in general, but specifically to us, is
the Bacon Ride.
The Bacon Ride. And everyone already knows that I don't actually eat bacon, but I do have myself an awfully good time on the Bacon Ride.
I love attending bacon events with Murph because I can eat her bacon. It's amazing. So we will be there, and we will be hosting a little special surprise that we'll have to talk about later because it hasn't become public. But we will We will be hosting a little mini event within the Bacon Ride, and then of course we'll be riding because we can't go and not ride.
Yeah. So that's the Bacon Ride. That's coming up in June.
Oh, and I absolutely did not say where the Bacon Ride will happen. It's in the Des Moines area at the Raccoon River Valley Nature Trail. It's a beautiful loop about 80 miles that you can bike for this ride.
BaconRide.com to check more. Get yourself registered, and maybe you'll be able to bike with us.
Yeah.
But back to the Iowa Bike Coalition, you talked about some of the laws that they are behind. Well, they just recently passed, I think it's HF 2568, and it is a crosswalk bill, which is pretty darn cool.
Yeah, it expands cyclists' legal protections while in crosswalks.
Yeah.
So it's pretty important, just in case anything should happen. Not that anything will happen to you while you're in a crosswalk, but just in case.
Right.
It helps protect you as a human and the value of your life in that crosswalk.
Right. And of course, it's our responsibility to be safe in a crosswalk. So if you get hit while you're in a crosswalk, this law is not going to save you in any way.
Sure.
But the ramifications to the person driving the vehicle to things that might have happened, especially if you're not at fault. That's where this law comes into play. So that's pretty cool.
So nice work, Luke, and the team who made that happen.
Yeah. Okay, so today's episode is about another ride that is coming up very soon, and it's called Tour of the Battenkill.
Yeah, Tour of the Battenkill is a really cool one. It used to be a UCI certified bike race.
Oh.
It is now a for fun race, but it's just as difficult. So it's kind of fun in that like it's a true challenge to riders. There's 3 different lengths: the Gran Fondo, the Medio Fondo, and the Piccolo Fondo. So they range from about 80 miles, 70, 80 miles to maybe 30 miles. So there's a little something for everyone, and it's situated in beautiful upstate New York.
Yeah, and Laura and Pasha are on today, and they go pretty in depth into the different mileages, the different scenery, how beautiful it is. So I'm pretty. This will be a good episode to learn more about Tour of the Battenkill.
Well, you're going to be able to fact check me on those distances because I just I pulled those out of my memory, so we'll see. But yeah, it's a really awesome event. It's May 18th, 2024. So if you're in the New York area, you might hit it up. I'll be there. It's going to be an awesome time.
All right. Well, let's get to the interview with Laura and Pasha. As AP and I mentioned, this is an entire episode on an event called Tour of the Battenkill. And I'd like to introduce both of my guests, Pasha and Laura. Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Thanks for having us.
Sure. Glad to have you on the podcast. Pasha, let's start with you. Will you tell the listeners, I guess we already know your name, but where you live and what you do for this event?
Yes, I live in Minneapolis, Minnesota. I would call it the head trash picker-upper, and then also the sort of de facto ride director, I would say. I was fortunate enough to be asked to help with this event last year when it was going through a transition period while I was working on some other events for Ventures Endurance, and I enjoyed it a lot. It was my first time doing anything in that part of the country. So I was excited to keep at it and hopefully bring some continuity to the event because it has been a little bit stop-start in the last few years, obviously with COVID as well.
Sure, yeah. And I'm so excited to get into the event because, like you said, it's also an area of the country that I haven't really done a lot of biking. So, but before we do that, Laura, introduce yourself.
Sure. So Laura Rice, event operations manager, jumping in to assist Pasha with Tour of the Battenkill, since I've got a background in cycling, and it's fun for me, especially since it's East Coast based and I'm in North Carolina. So there's a little bit of similarity between where I live and then the scenery and type of riding that we've got up in New York.
And a lot of people who are listening to this podcast do RAGBRAI, which we all know that's the ride across Iowa, but people who do RAGBRAI are from everywhere. So hopefully there are people listening right now that are like, I live on the East Coast. I want to know more about Tour of the Battenkill. So let's get into it. Who wants to tell us a little bit about the history of Tour of the Battenkill?
I suppose I can start, if that's all right, Laura, and feel free to jump in.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure that with your background, you also have some input on some of these things. But the Tour of the Battenkill as an event in some capacity has been around since 2005. So it has definitely stood up to the test of time. And through its various iterations, it has been a UCI 1.2 level event, which is pretty high on the international calendar for pro cyclists. There were pretty big names there in the past. Floyd Landis, Greg LeMond made a stop there. So it used to be a really big competitive event. And over the years, especially since Ventures Endurance has taken it over, and with the general trend in cycling, it has become a Fondo event that is non-competitive, but still an incredibly beautiful and challenging course. So that's kind of been the transition over the last 18 years.
And especially if you are drawing, at least in the past, professional riders, that makes me think that this is, it must be quite a course. Is it the same route each year?
It is a beast. I think this year, while we were scouting the course, even the car was groaning on some of the climbs. So yes, it's a very difficult course. It wouldn't matter if it was all paved or the mix of paved and gravel like it is. It is just a difficult course. Course has stayed fairly consistent. To be honest, some of the old course maps aren't even accessible to us, even though we're managing the event. So I couldn't tell you how far back that course has maintained. However, this year it is a significantly different course. There are a couple of climbs that haven't been on the long distance Gran Fondo event before, so we're excited to introduce those. One is on a spot called Mount Colfax, and so there will be a variability in course for those that have done the ride in the past. At the same time, much of the difficulty still remains.
And will you tell us the location of this event and then also the date for 2024?
Yes. So the date is May 18th this year. It's a Saturday morning. We are in Greenwich, New York. We are at the Washington County Fairgrounds, which is just on the east side of the Hudson across from Saratoga. That's probably a more familiar locale for some listeners, for those Revolutionary War buffs. But we'll be in Washington County. That's where the entire event and route takes place.
So the majority of this route, maybe all of it, would be considered rural New York?
100%.
Ah, okay. And then you said mixed terrain. What does that mean?
Yes, mixed terrain. So there is plenty of paved course. There is a decent amount of gravel as well. Our rough count is probably about 30 to 40% gravel, I think is a rough guess. And I will say that the gravel is not like the gravel that maybe people in Iowa expect with V roads and things like that. It is pretty smooth in terms of being an unpaved road. Even last year when we had pretty wet conditions, it was not especially messy. It was just slippery. So like you would have basically on any surface in those conditions. So it is mixed, but I would definitely say it doesn't require any over the top cycling gear.
And on a side note, I think I don't remember what episode I was talking about gravel and how different it is in each, actually almost each county that you ride your bike in. I think it'd be fun to have like a coffee table book that would be like, tour of the Battenkill gravel versus event A gravel, and just to talk about the different quality of the actual road.
Right. Yeah. It will be a challenge, like I said, no matter what, but I think people will be pleasantly surprised as to how little their teeth will chatter while they ride across it.
Okay, that's good. And Laura, do you want to tell us about the different route options?
Yeah, sure. So there are 3 different route options. And one of the really cool things about a Gran Fondo style event is that you can pick a shorter route, you can pick the middle distance, you can pick the long distance, but it's really up to you how quickly you head out. There are time constraints with volunteers and law enforcement support at intersections, but it's not like a race. It's a go out, find your pace, challenge yourself, but enjoy the ride as well. So the long ride is called the Gran Fondo, or Gran. And with the new course this year, it's just over 77 miles with close to 6,000 feet of elevation.
Ooh.
So it's it'll kick you there.
Yeah.
But it is absolutely beautiful. Talked a little bit about just the scenery and the ruralness of where we are. And it's beautiful out there. Beautiful, beautiful part of the country. Then we step down to the Medio, which is 39.3 miles, with about half the climbing. So we're about 27,000 feet of climbing there. So, shorter distance, less climbing, still absolutely beautiful. And then the shorter of the routes, shortest, is the Piccolo, and it's at 24.2 miles with 13,000 feet, 1,300, feet of climbing. That would be quite the hill climb otherwise. And same thing. I mean, you've got a great percentage of pavement to gravel. And that nice, smooth, hard packed gravel is just, you're going to fly over it. Just soak it up and enjoy it.
And is it terrain similar to what Iowans would expect, where it's, we call them rollers, where you're doing a lot of up, down, up, down, up, down, versus are you doing all that elevation at one big either mountain climb or one big climb and then smooth sailing down?
I'd say Pasha can speak a little more detailed to this, as he's more familiar with Iowa terrain. I'm still getting up to speed on that, but there's definitely, I'd say, a fair combination of both. You've got a lot of rollers with some nice marked climbs, especially on the Gran and the Medio routes.
Yeah, I think that's a fair description. I think there are a decent amount of rollers. However, the challenges throughout all three courses are those sort of highlight climbs. Your legs will hopefully have a little bit of time to recover after each of those.
With a great climb, you get a great descent.
Yes. Well, I was just going to say I did a gravel race/ride. It was a ride for me. And there was one big climb, and they put the photographer just not quite to the top of the hill. And that when he went through all those photos, everyone was grimacing, including me. And I just thought it was funny. Shouldn't you be at the top of the hill when everyone's kind of patting themselves on the back for getting that climb completed?
There's no truth in that, Art Murph.
So I guess that's a note. Don't put your photographer halfway up the hill, okay?
We will probably have both of our photographers all over the place, up, down, and all around.
Yeah.
That's actually one thing that I was really happy with last year were the new photographs that we got from the course. And this year we have another great local photographer from New England area who's going to be coming in with a drone as well. So getting a bunch more shots and kind of giving people a better lay of the land, maybe what to expect for next year, let's say. So.
Okay, so in the past, this seemed like it was a little bit more of a race, but like you mentioned, now it's probably a little bit of a choose your own adventure. If you want to be at the front of the pack, go as fast as you can, awesome. And then if you want to be more of I want to challenge myself to complete the event. But is it timed?
It is timed. I think you're right in the description of choose your own adventure. So since we have a little bit of a platform here, I do want to say that it's one thing that we are slowly transitioning with the event, because there is this history of racing with it, and it's a really cool history. However, that's just not the reality of the participants that come to the event these days. So it is non-competitive, if you want to use the official term. You can ride absolutely as hard as you want. We will have a ton of support out there in terms of aid stations and course marshals and traffic control, and help from New York State Police and help from Washington County Sheriff's Office. They're all a huge portion of it. They kind of make sure the intersections are safe. However, what I would like to stress to anybody that is signed up already or that is considering signing up is that it is still an open road. There are no officially closed intersections outside of the very first one where we start to actually get on the course. Beyond that, you really have to pay attention to traffic, follow the traffic laws and the laws of the road. So absolutely, please come challenge yourself. I want you to feel absolutely wrecked when you finish, because I think that's the only way you can really enjoy this ride, to be honest, is to really take it in and push yourself and see what you can do, and enjoy that beer at the end. But yes, please do it in a safe manner.
Do you have an idea of how many people participate each year?
I would say that we are aiming for just over 1,000 people this year.
Oh, wow.
That's our
Okay.
goal.
Uh-huh.
Yep. In terms of history that we talked about, it used to be a significantly bigger event. There were obviously multiple categories, people racing from all over the country because it was such a high-profile event on the calendar. And we hope that we can build it back up to that, but obviously it's going to take time. We understand that people are still adjusting to what the new event is, and we still have to get the word out to new people that maybe were never interested in racing, but now might want to do it as a non-competitive event.
Mm-hmm. Well, and in the time of the year that this event happens, I'm sure a lot of people can use it as their training, throughout the winter months. Like, this is my first event of the year. I want to do it right.
Yeah, I would hope so. Upstate New York weather is not that different from Iowa in terms of its variability.
Mm-hmm.
They've for this event, they've had snow, they've had heat, they've had rain. It's been a little bit of everything. So last year it was, I will go on record as saying, I didn't even have to race, and it was absolutely miserable. It was cold, it was rainy, it was windy. For those that finished, obviously it was pretty epic, but it was not the most pleasant of rides. We'll call it that. We moved further into spring to hopefully avoid that, and also, like you said, give people more time in the saddle, or whether on their trainer, or if they can get out and get ready, because it is one that you can definitely aim for as a goal ride.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you briefly mentioned, you said something about a post-event beer. So will you tell the listeners a little bit about the support that riders get both on the route and then at the end?
Absolutely. So the post-event beer, most importantly, is provided by a great local brewery from Saratoga called Artisanal Brewworks. They actually have a great IPA called Derailleur IPA, very fittingly. So they will be pouring that among a few other things. If people are into we'll call it a more tart beer, they actually have a Warheads branded beer as well. I don't know if they'll be bringing that one out, but if you're in town, definitely check it out.
Mm-hmm.
We will have live music post-event. We will have lots of great photo ops. I think 3, maybe 4 food vendors, and your meal is included, or at least one meal. You can buy more, obviously, if you're still hungry, but your first meal is included with your registration, and that's anything from the basic pizza and burgers to a little bit healthier bowls and other options like that.
Mm-hmm.
So once we get those vendors finalized, because they do rotate, people have availability here and there, we will definitely announce those. On the course, there are 3 aid stations for the Gran Fondo, 2 for the Medio, 1 for the Piccolo. Those will be fully stocked with obviously the basics that everybody needs: granola, bananas, water, sugary drinks, TBD. I don't know if it will be Coke or something like it, but to make sure basically we can keep fueling you, we will have the aid stations on the Gran Fondo course will be a little bit meatier, we'll call it that, because obviously it's a significantly longer ride, so we want to make sure people are ready to go, and we'll provide a little bit more variability as well, because that is our largest group of riders, is the Gran Fondo. But along with those 3 aid stations, we'll have moto support. There will be 9 motos that are trolling the course kind of back and forth. They have basic supplies in terms of fixing flats and things like that. And then we also have a fully stocked bike repair van from Velofix, and they'll be on the course as well, getting people sorted out, even if it's something as potentially day-ending as a broken derailleur. They might be able to fix it and get you back on the road. So all of that support will be out there.
Well supported.
Yes.
And then in addition to that, okay, so let's say somebody's going to do the long one, which is, you said, is called the Gran Fondo?
Correct.
Okay, so someone wants to do the Gran Fondo, that's 77 miles, plus they want to have a little bit of, downtime afterwards and enjoy the post-event party. Will there be opportunity for either camping or hotels in the area?
Yes. One thing that we are adding this year is camping at Washington County Fair. So they have obviously a big spot on their grounds for RVs, for tent camping, and basically anything in between. So definitely you can go on the website tourthebattenkill.com, and at the very top it says Camp at Battenkill, and it will take you to the reservation link that you can book through the Washington County Fair. Hotel options. Since Washington County is rural, like we mentioned earlier, there are fewer hotels, sort of the standard Hampton Inns of the world. However, there are a ton of Airbnbs, other campgrounds, Verbos. We have all of those linked. If you go to tourthebattenkill.com/stay-local, you can check out some of those options. We've saved them for you to browse. They're super convenient because you're already close to the event site. You can obviously check out some of the super quaint towns that we pass through. The kind of the two bigger ones that we're close to are the village of Greenwich and the village of Cambridge, and they have a few more amenities and obviously also plenty more places to stay than some of the more rural areas. But yeah, we definitely encourage people, if they are interested in truly taking in everything that the Tour of the Battenkill has to offer, is to stay in Washington County if you can.
Excellent. And then probably on a lot of people's mind is going to be swag. So if I complete the Tour of the Battenkill, do I have the opportunity to get a jersey or a t-shirt or a something that I can brag to my friends that I completed it?
Laura, do you want to take this one, or do you want me to go with it?
Oh no, I can tell them about all the cool things that they're gonna get. And one of the things that folks may not know about Battenkill is that a lot of the Northeast, you've got these iconic covered bridges. So there'll be at least one on the Gran Fondo course, but it's kind of on the really cool logo of the event. So it's good looking logo, I have to say. I've seen a lot of the logos, and this one is really cool looking. So when you register, you'll get it's kind of a tech tee. You've got a ceramic mug, which is also, you can, coffee, beer, whatever.
Yeah.
You get your beer after the race, which you already mentioned. And then, you get the SAG and medical support, which isn't so much swag, but, it's pretty important.
Still important.
Too.
Yeah.
Yeah. There is the opportunity when you go through registration to order this year's jersey. Same thing, it looks really cool, and a great way to remember the event and you doing it. And that's from Primal brand. Super comfortable, great to race in if you're out there racing other events, ride in, train in, and it looks really good as well. Got, I think, some water bottles and all sorts of stuff that you can choose from.
Any major challenges you can think of ahead for the riders? And we have to take weather out of it, of course, because we don't know what that will bring. But any major challenges you can think of?
Aside from weather, I genuinely think that the challenge is getting there. I understand that doing an event is never cheap, right? It's something that you truly want to do. So it is a thing for you, for your health and for your enjoyment, to have a great memory, to have a great experience. That's everything that we're doing on the course, but especially at the Washington County Fair, is for you to have as positive an experience as we can. The one thing we have yet to be able to control is weather, but we're working on it. I would say getting there is probably your biggest challenge, especially if we have a good listenership right now from the Midwest. I'm not going to sugarcoat and say that flying into Albany, New York is cheap, but if you are able to get there, we would absolutely love to have you, because I think it's such a unique event, and the landscape is kind of second to none.
Well, and all those listeners who have camper vans or RVs, they can just make a trip out of it. And then since you offer camping, they can just stay at the fairgrounds.
Yes. And that is my hope. I know that this is sort of my thing, but I am very aware that we as event production professionals in quotes, I like to say. We live in the nooks and crannies of everybody's lives that participates in our events. They have families, they have kids, they have practices, they have classes, whatever it may be. We hope that you can find a nook and cranny for Tour of the Battenkill. And if you have something like an RV, if you have the time, if you have the energy, I think it will be a experience that will be well worth it.
Yeah. And I just looked at the jersey and the tech tee that you mentioned, Laura. Love it. Sometimes those are the things that push me over the edge on whether to do an event. I hate to say that, but
Well, yeah, when you're doing so many, it's those little touches that will kind of make it a special one. And I think with, Tour of the Battenkill, there's such legacy to this event and being in this community. So that, along with, this awesome jersey that we have this year, the date, which hopefully gives us a little better weather, the crew that we have working on this. And then, I mean, the biggest part really is the communities that are welcoming us into Washington County and onto their roads. So I said it before, I'll say it again, it's beautiful. It's going to be a fantastic ride, but it's the communities that make it happen and allow us to come and play bikes in Washington County.
yeah. Okay, so it's called Tour of the Battenkill. The date is May 18th, 2024. Are you still accepting registrations?
Yes, very much so. We want as many people to come back as haven't been back in a couple of years. We want as many new riders as are willing to take on the challenge, as are willing to come out. So yes, tourofthebattenkill.com.
How about some highlights of the route as far? You mentioned that there would be support stops, but do you go through any towns, villages, that sort of thing that people can really get a feel for rural New York?
Well, the entire course is rural New York, so you will get a feel for it as long as you keep riding. However, all the towns that we pass through are sort of unique and interesting in their own way. A lot of the roads that we use in those towns don't necessarily go through their main avenue. Mm-hmm. However, you'll still be able to see a lot of the beauty. So we start in Easton, then we head into Jackson, and to Cambridge. See if I can get this all from memory in order. Then to Salem, then Hebron, then Argyle, then Greenwich. Oh, one other quick highlight that I also wanted to throw out. It's not necessarily a town, but it's also a beautiful spot on the course, and they've been kind enough to let us use their property, is Christ the King, which is a retreat center for the New York Episcopal Church. And we're cutting right through their property. It's a beautiful little spot. So give them a wave when you're passing through there as well. That'll be for the Medio Fondo and the Piccolo Fondo.
Yeah, there are a lot of little special towns, and I mean the history up there is really cool too. So like Pasha had said, if you're a history buff, or even if you're not a history buff, it's everywhere around you up in that area, which once again just adds to the neat experience of riding around Washington County and being in upstate New York.
Well, Pasha and Laura, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. And tourofthebattenkill.com is the place to go. May 18th, you got to go to Washington County in New York for this beautiful ride. And we appreciate you coming on.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, glad to be on and looking forward to seeing everybody in May.
Thanks for tuning in to the Just Go Bike podcast. Murph and AP will be back next week. In the meantime, check us out on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and X, formerly known as Twitter. And if you would like to contact Murph and AP with a comment about the podcast, or maybe you have a topic in mind, email them at justgobikepodcast@gmail.com. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to this podcast, especially if you're a fan. Until next time, just go bike! Theme song by Ryan Steer. Logo by Suzanne Milosevic. Produced by Kathy Murphy. Social media by Andrea Parrott. Intro by Pumpkin. Until next time, just go bike.